In this example, we're going to solve an equation that involves square roots. Now, to make this a little simpler before we start squaring both sides to get rid of the square roots, is we want to isolate one of the square roots. So we're going to isolate the 2x minus 1, simply because it's just a little easier to do that one. Just move the x minus 1 over and make it a plus. Okay. Now we will square both sides. And in doing so, on the left-hand side, we are just going to have 2x minus 1. A square root and a square essentially cancel each other out, leaving us with the 2x minus 1. On the right-hand side of the equal sign, though, we are going to have to FOIL. Where students sometimes make a mistake is they think they can distribute that square through the parentheses and just make it 1 squared plus the square root of x minus 1 squared. And you would be missing the middle term there, and you would not get the correct answer. So you need to FOIL. I will continue with the left-hand side, writing it down, and then the right-hand side we will FOIL, first times first, outside times outside, plus inside times inside, and then last times last, since they are both square roots, the square root goes away, and you just have x minus 1. Now, since we still have the square root to deal with right here, we are going to isolate that just like we did in the second step, isolating the square root of 2x minus 1. So the 1 and the minus 1 cancel out. That's nice. And then we will subtract x from both sides. So that gives us x minus 1 equals, and then these two are like terms, so I can write it as 2 square root of x minus 1. Now you can divide both sides by 2 to fully isolate the square root, but you don't have to. You can just square both sides from right here. So x minus 1 times x minus 1. On the right-hand side, you will square the 2, and you will square the x minus 1. Square root of the x minus 1. X squared minus 2x plus 1 on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we'll have 4 times x minus 1. So it took several steps, but now we're down to a quadratic equation. We'll just need to set it to 0. But first I need to FOIL here. Distribute 4x minus 4. I will subtract 4x from both sides and add 4 to both sides. So we'll put that right here. That will give me x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0, which will factor to x minus 5, x minus 1. So we get a solution of x equals 5 or x equals 1. Now, you have to be careful here because when you square both sides of an equation, you introduce the possibility of an extraneous solution. What that means is that after we square it, we could get a solution that is true after you square it, but not true before you square it. And since we are wanting to solve the original equation, what you have to do to make sure that that didn't happen is to substitute both of your solutions into the original problem and see if it makes the equation true. If it doesn't, then that is an extraneous solution and you need to cross it out. So if I start with the 5 here and plug it back in to the original equation, that would give me square root of 9 minus the square root of 4. Does that equal 1? It does. 3 minus 2 equals 1, so that works. So that is not an extraneous solution. That is a solution that works. Now let's try the 1. If I substitute 1 into the original equation, I will get square root of 1 minus, and if I substitute it into the second, square root of 0. Does that equal 1? Yes, it does. 1 minus 0 equals 1. So both of these work. Neither one of them are extraneous solutions.